book lovers, welcome back to the Bibliovert channel. My name is Jacqueline, and for today's video I thought we would do a little bit of a deep dive into the Romantasy genre by doing a reading vlog. So from what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Romantasy is romance fantasy, but where the emphasis is on the romance. So fantasy romance, the emphasis is on the fantasy side of things, and Romantasy, the emphasis is on the love story and the romance. I think the two books that I have for this week both fall into that category. Again, please let me know if I am totally off base with this. One of these I have heard mixed reviews about. The other one just came out, and so far I have heard nothing but good things. So I think that this could be really interesting. The first book that I'm going to start with is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Our main character is a pickpocket and a thief, and when she has an encounter with death, she opens up a portal to the Fae realm. So I think that this could be interesting. I have also heard that the audiobook is really good. So I'm going to give both reading the physical and reading the audiobook a shot and see kind of which one grabs me more. But I do think we're going to start with this one. The other one, and again, this one just came out this last week, and I have heard so many good reviews, and it is Shield of Sparrows by Daphne Perry. We also just need to talk about how beautiful this edition is. I have mixed feelings on sprayed edges, but undeniably that is gorgeous. Absolutely stunning. And then this is the hardcover case, and I think that these end papers are so pretty. Oh, well, hello. Shield of Sparrows is already off to a good start because it has the arranged marriage trope, which is one of my all-time favorites. All-time favorites. I'm definitely looking forward to starting this one. I want to say I've heard a lot of discourse online about like why Romantasy is bad and that it's has bad writing or it's lacking depth. And I think for me, reading is subjective. For the most part, I have read a lot of Romantasy books that I absolutely love, and there has been some that haven't necessarily hit home for me. But sometimes it's just nice to get lost in a book, whether it be serious or not that serious, whether it is lacking depth or it is one of the most in-depth books you've ever read. I don't think there's ever going to be a book that absolutely everybody loves, but I do think it goes without saying that Romantasy has a place, and I, for one, am really excited that it is being explored more. There are always pros and cons with things becoming mainstream, but I think that the benefit that we get from things becoming more popular hopefully outweigh the bad things that can also come along with that popularity. So I'm looking forward to these. I will be checking in with my thoughts throughout the way, and I will let you know how this journey goes. If you have any Romantasy books that you think I should read, please let me know. Again, I love reading Romantasy, so I'm always looking for more recommendations. But I will check back in with you once I have started reading. I have started Quicksilver and I'm about 100 pages into it, about to start chapter 8. So I have been listening to it on audiobook so far, and I will say the audiobook narrators are phenomenal. I have really enjoyed that, and I think that the world building is really strong as well. I feel like I can really see everything that is going on in the scene, and I understand motivations, and I understand the political intrigue and just all of those kinds of things. I will say, and I think that this is more of a personal, like a me problem than anything, the female main character, Saris, her kind of archetype is just not necessarily a character that I always connect with. The kind of stubborn, impulsive, slightly arrogant character traits are just not ones that I feel like help me connect with main characters. And so I think so far in the first 100 pages, I've just been feeling a lot of like, why did you make that decision? Like, if like we could just take a second and think it through. And I think some of what is like the banter of the book just kind of comes off more as like argumentative than like quick-witted, and like there's like funny and snark with it. However, I'm really hoping that like maybe as I get to know Sarah a little bit more that I will like find more things to connect with her on. I have read some reviews where it was like, yeah, hit the 65% mark and then like the book gets really good. So I'm very curious to see like what happens at 65% to feel this way. So I wouldn't necessarily say I love the book, but I also do not feel like I'm gonna DNF it and like can't handle it anymore. So we'll see. I'm obviously not that very far into it, but yeah, I'll check back in when I have more thoughts. I finished Quicksilver last night and I do have quite a few thoughts about it. This first little bit is going to be spoiler free, but then I will like give a little heads up for when the spoilers are and when to skip to, so that if you haven't read the book yet, you don't have to worry about that. I think one of my primary thoughts is that this book had a lot of potential. The plot, the world building, all of it was pretty interesting and definitely kept me captivated. I do think that it was a little bit too long and that it took too much time before you started to get to like the really good parts. I absolutely agree with many of the reviews that say once you hit the 65-70% mark, the book starts to get interesting. It definitely picked up there. I think that there was a really strong cast of side characters. I really enjoyed a lot of them. There were some that I was like, I honestly would love to have a spin-off series about some of these other characters because I enjoyed them so much. I will say I still struggled to connect with Ceres. Even though the last like third of the book, she was definitely a lot less argumentative, it got to a point where it felt like if someone said that the sky was blue, she would say, no, it's purple, just for the sake of arguing. And I think like that was supposed to be sold as the banter, but unfortunately that just didn't connect with me. There were definitely things that I did enjoy about Kingfisher, but for the most part, it did just kind of feel like a bunch of tropes just thrown into one thing that's like every book boyfriend ever, put him here and you'll love him. Getting into some of the spoilers. So please skip ahead to the timestamp right here if you want to avoid spoilers for this book. Regarding the mating bond between Kingfisher and Ceres, I do kind of feel like their romance wasn't believable and that it was just, we are both attracted to each other and we have a mating bond. And like for Kingfisher, he's known about her for hundreds of years, knew what she was going to look like, and has kind of had this idea in his mind about his mate. And so it just kind of maybe felt like they were both attracted to each other and then, oh look, they have a mating bond and they're in love. But I just didn't really believe the like in love part. I definitely believed the attraction, but anything deeper than that, it just wasn't quite for me. The part at the end that kind of officially lost me a little bit was the fact that she became something other and was half fae, half vampire, God favored, and then became the queen of the vampires. At that point, I was like, it was the queen of the vampires that I just I couldn't do it anymore. So one down, I will be starting Shield of Sparrows by Daphne Perry soon. So far, I still have only heard really good things about this book, and I don't want to like have my expectations too high since I've heard other people are loving it. Thankfully, I haven't heard like specific reasons why they're loving it, just that it's really good. So I think I'm gonna try and lower my expectations and just go in blind and see how it goes. I am about 50% of the way through Shield of Sparrows and I have some thoughts. First thing, I think the world building is really strong. I have thoroughly enjoyed all of the settings that we've had so far. I think like the overall arching conflict of this book is fascinating. The introduction of the monsters that we have, it's just like very new and feels very vibrant. Our main character, Odessa, I do like her. I think, bless her, she is in her head a lot. Like she talks about how in her head she is, and I think that that does lend itself to the repetitive nature of this book. That has been something that for the first 50% it does seem very cyclical in the sense of we have like a training montage and they travel and then she tries to spy and then she's in her head and then like rinse and repeat. We don't have a very clear plot progression as of right now. I have a feeling in the second half of the book we're going to have a better idea of what the plot is and how it's going to progress. But with how much she's in her head and how frequently these thoughts are kind of recycled, it has made it feel like the first 50% might be like a hair too long. But I'm a plot-driven reader, and so I understand that this just might not be to my own personal taste. Also in the sense that this is a romantasy, and I'm gonna say this without giving spoilers. The romance plot itself, we know where it's going, but it hasn't developed in any sort of way so far. And so again, I definitely have hunches and theories and all of those things, but we just haven't necessarily seen any of it come to fruition yet. So I feel like in the second half of the book, the plot and the romance are really going to pick up. But one thing that is nice is I'm not having to force myself to read this book. It is definitely, I am intrigued. I want to continue reading. I'm excited to pick it up next. The banter has been really good. So I will check back in with you when I have made it a little bit further to give more of my thoughts, but that is everything as of the 50% mark. I finished Shield of Sparrows last night, and unfortunately I really did not like it. Generally, whether it's on our podcast or here on YouTube, Allie and I try to keep our reviews for the most part positive, so this does feel a little bit weird to be talking about 2 books in a video that I didn't like. I was really hopeful for this one, but like I mentioned earlier, reading is subjective, and I can absolutely respect the hard work and dedication that goes into writing a book. So while I will be sharing my thoughts and feelings on this book, I do want to be as respectful as possible, especially considering this is a highly rated book and I know that a lot of people really love it. So jumping right into it, not in terms of the plot or the story itself, but kind of in terms of the things that maybe I didn't love about these 2 books, there were some similarities. So while the world building was really strong, I, again, just had a really hard time connecting with the main characters, and for very different reasons. With this book, and one thing that I can appreciate is that our main character, you know, isn't a trained assassin or doesn't just like have a training montage for 5 seconds and then becomes really good at everything. She's definitely more relatable in the sense of she has no training. She does get trained, but she's not like immediately really good at it. I do think that this quote does kind of give an overview of how I feel about Odessa in general. Please let me try to help. Don't shut me out. I'm so tired of being the last to know what everyone already does. I'm not a warrior, I'm not a scholar or healer or even a decent princess, but I am capable. I taught myself how to whistle, how to shoot a crossbow with marginal accuracy. I haven't cut myself with my own knife or sword. I can help. I want to help. I think where I struggled is that for all of the training that she did, which it is a lot in this book, really the successes that we see is that she taught herself how to whistle. And we do see some things come full circle at the very end in terms of the repetition of the plot, and quite frankly, maybe lack thereof of a plot. The payoff didn't feel worth it in the end for me personally. I think another thing that I kind of struggled with is that our main character is alone a lot. And most of this book is her inner monologue of just asking the same questions or having the same thoughts repeatedly. And then when she finally asks the questions out loud, she's either denied an answer, or as they're starting to answer, they get interrupted. And it happens again and again and again and again. So it's not even until 85% of the book when we finally start to get some of the questions that we have been reading over and over and over again from the very beginning. And at that point, it just kind of felt like not only is Odessa in the dark, but you, the reader, are in the dark. I think maybe if we had been getting a little bit more, a little bit sooner, it would have felt less exasperating. Another aspect to this is there are several plot twists that happen in the book. And I will say there was one that I didn't really see coming. However, all of the other ones I think were fairly clear from the very beginning. So again, when it finally happened, it wasn't until that 80-85% mark and you're just like, yes, like, we've known this. So again, that payoff just wasn't there. So in regards to the way that this book ended, I definitely think I wouldn't mind if someone said like, oh, Jacqueline, these are all of the things that happen in book 2. However, I don't necessarily see myself chomping at the bit, gnawing on the bars of my enclosure to find out for myself, to read the second book. I will say, one thing that made reading this book so much fun was reading it with Melissa and Margaret. We all had so many thoughts and we were all on the exact same page. The three of us just got to talk about it together, and I'm telling you, it made the reading experience absolutely delightful. It was so wonderful. I did the same thing with reading Quicksilver with Amanda. So having bookish friends that you can just scream into the void with just makes everything that much better. So thank you, Amanda, Melissa, and Margaret, for letting me talk about books with y'all. Okay, so the last thing that I'm gonna say about Shield of Sparrows is if you really enjoyed the like political intrigue of King sending his daughter in an arranged marriage to spy and then kill her husband, I wholeheartedly, with my whole chest, recommend The Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. Laura, our main character, who is the princess, she is a trained assassin, and this duology, it is so good. So good. I highly recommend. So I'm not gonna lie, I do feel a little bit unsettled about ending this video on what feels like such a negative note, but if you read either Quicksilver or Shield of Sparrows and you loved it, or maybe you felt a little bit more like me, please let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts on the books. And also, if you have any Romantasy books to recommend, please share them down below. I would love to do another video about this and sharing all of the lovely, wonderful Romantasy books that are out in the world. But if you would like to learn a little bit more about us, you can check us out over on Instagram at the Bibliovertpodcast. We also have a podcast called the Bibliovertpodcast where we do monthly book reviews, and we have a Patreon that is filled with the most incredible book-loving people from all over the world that I am so grateful to know. We do monthly book buddy reads, we have a wonderful chat, we have 2 Patreon exclusive episodes that come out every single month. We also do some behind the scenes content. So if you would like to check those out, feel free to follow the links in the description box down below. But I hope you have a fantastic day, happy reading, and I'll see you next time.